now for a discussion presented by Accor. Please welcome the Chief Sustainability Officer of Accor, Brune Poirson, in conversation with Skift's Head of Creative Strategy, Matt Heidkamp.
Hi, Brune. How are you today?
Hi, Matt. Very well, and you?
I'm doing fantastic. Welcome to the Skift Destination and Sustainability Summit, and I guess I should actually say welcome more broadly to the travel industry. And I'd love to just maybe start by giving the audience a little bit of insight into your background. You started at Accor earlier this year as Chief Sustainability Officer after years in the public sector, including most recently as an elected official in the French Parliament, Secretary of State for the Environmental Transition Team, Vice President of the UN Environmental Assembly. The list goes on. I'd love to hear a bit more about your background and why you felt now is the time to leave public sector and shift your focus into travel and hospitality.
Well, Matt, I've basically always worked or always been sort of obsessed with sustainability and sustainable development. I guess like perhaps just many people around the world, but I was raised in the countryside. And so I always felt very close to issues related to, the environment and nature. And that led me, I could also see firsthand, that nature was under attack, to put it simply. And so it's one of the reasons why I decided to make it really the fight of my life. And so I decided I worked abroad for many years to try and understand how things worked elsewhere in the world. And also I had the opportunity to work in India where I could see there as well firsthand what pollution meant, what environmental degradation and what were the consequences not only in Europe or in the Western world, but also in emerging countries. And so I decided to get into politics to take this fight to another level. And I was elected member of parliament, and then I became a member of the French government. And there I sort of led and passed a major law on anti-waste. So it was on waste management and curbing also curbing the production of plastics, making sure we would also approach and just like putting more regulation in the fashion industry, rethinking also the way we manage and we build actually buildings, and to make sure that the impact on the planet was actually not as strong as it was. Anyway, it was like a broad anti-waste law. And to me, that was my way of having impact. And after that, when, I worked on the regulation, as you mentioned, I got elected at the UN Environmental Assembly. And after that, I kept questioning myself, where do I have the most impact? And I think now it is the private sector that is actually the most able and that has the capability to change things in the real world for and in favor of the environment and to protect nature. So that's why I decided to move to the private sector, but not to any sort of sector of the economy, to the hospitality sector in particular, for many reasons. Maybe I guess the first one is because it's an industry that is really focused on people. It is really people intensive in the best sense. Because people want to travel, because people go to our hotels and they want to feel well, either because they want to visit or because they want to work, but also because the travel industry is, as I said, people intensive in terms of a lot of people work for the travel industry. So it's a great it's a great center or a great place to be if you want to rethink social issues, but also accelerate the social elevator that the hospitality sector is. So that's one of the main reasons. The other one may sound quite like sort of paradoxical, but the other reason is because COVID, the hospitality industry was hit really hard by COVID. It is very sad. It is very difficult for the industry, but I think it is an opportunity to rethink a bit the way we work, the way we operate. And so to me, that was a great opportunity. And then finally, one of the reasons why I decided to join is because the hospitality industry is a very carbon intensive industry, potentially, or it has the potential to really harm the planet, but also it has the potential to heal the planet as well. And to heal society, just like more generally, as I said, it can be a social elevator. So for these three main reasons, I decided to quit, to leave politics, and to get into the hospitality industry and sector. And so far, I'm very happy.
Well, we're very happy to have you here. And so you're about 3 months in now, 4 months in, and your role for Accor is really to define the vision and the action plan as far as sustainability goes for the group overall. So 3 months in, what's your take so far? Do you have any priorities? Are there any big projects or initiatives that you're especially excited about launching or carrying on?
Well, I think the vision, the broad and the general vision is really how can we turn our hotels into contributors, instead of taking a lot from the environment or from society. I don't necessarily believe that it is the case, but the hospitality sector in general is really under attack, or will increasingly be under attack. It is accused of actually using a lot of land. It is accused of promoting, international travel. It is accused of not necessarily treating people as well as they should be treated. Anyway, it is under attack. And I think we can really turn that around, and a hotel can really become a place, not only a beacon of hope, but also really a place that contributes to the neighborhood, to the area it is. For example, just to give you an example, a hotel or a restaurant is by definition a place where you eat. And so depending on how you source the food that you're going to provide to your guests, your impact on nature can be huge, or can actually be regenerative or contributing. Same with energy. Whether you use carbon intensive energy, so coal-based energy, for example, or you use renewable energy that actually gives back or sells back to the network green energy or renewable energy, carbon-free energy, can also be a way of contributing. And I can go on and on and on. But I think what we need to turn our hotels is in places that are very lively and that bring back a lot, that are net positive places. That's really the broad and the general vision. And we've already started to launch a lot of projects to follow that vision. For example, in some countries, the LGBTQ plus community is sometimes under attack. Or, for example, women also. We know that during the COVID, they've been really under attack. Violence have really increased against women. And our hotels can become safe places, can become shelters for those communities. And so this is why, for example, Accor has launched and has led, and we announced it last month, has launched a coalition with the United Nations against gender-based violence. And our objective is to bring on board a wider number of companies that actually commit to protecting women. We are also going to spend, for example, 5 million euros to support women and to fight gender-based violence. So this is just an example. But we have many more examples, Matt. I don't want to go on and on. Just jump in.
I love it. I think, with all the touch points that hotels have and just the ability to affect so many people on the ground in the different communities that they're in is really amazing. So it's great to hear, not just the story of what you're doing on the environmental side, but really on that people-based side. And I think you're also leading up the All Hardest Fund as well, and a couple of those other people first initiatives. Are there anything else that you're particularly excited about on the front as far as people-based projects go?
Well, there are many. I mean, as you mentioned, the All Hardest Fund, I'd like to come back to that because it was an initiative that we launched during the COVID crisis about a bit more than a year ago, where the CEO decided that we were going to actually earmark and use and spend 70 million euros just to support our employees their families or frontline workers who were really affected negatively by the COVID crisis. And so far we've spent like 27, almost 30 million euros, and we've helped 87,000 people, Accor employees or frontline workers across the world, and we've really, I think, helped them and changed their lives for the better. At least we helped them go through the crisis. So I think this is pretty unique, and I think it really shows what is that solidarity, and that people and putting people first is really at the heart of the DNA of a company such as Accor. Yeah. And we want to keep doing that. We want to keep innovating. We want to keep becoming attractive to employees across the world. I think Accor, but a lot of other hospitality companies are facing recruitment challenges everywhere, be it in the headquarters or in our hotels and restaurants. And so the objective now is we need to question ourselves. How do we change our HR practices? How do we become more attractive? How do we become again a social elevator? And so we're currently exploring several ways of doing that. For example, one of the plans that we have is I don't know whether I can tell too much now, but one of the things that we'd like to be doing is exploring whether we could launch a social innovation fund, or we want to go fast and we want to go far in terms of launching innovative projects to put people first. This is really our priority.
I think the thing that strikes me too, in terms of talking about the community and talking about the employees and talking about the people on the front line, is that we haven't even started talking about what that means for customers and what that means for guests. And are there any challenges that you see ahead in terms of launching some of these programs? Any challenges in, bringing this idea to life of prioritizing community and prioritizing people, regardless if they're spending money with you or not? Any other challenges that sort of come to mind, and ways that we could maybe overcome that?
Well, so as you said, I think the first challenge is very often, and I know it's easy to say, but very difficult to do. Very often we tend to think, as like when you work for a company, you sort of wait for your customers or your clients to ask for more responsible products or more responsible practices. I think we've entered now a new era where it is actually the duty and the responsibility of private companies to put forward, to suggest major and more responsible innovations and ways of working, instead of waiting for the guests or for the clients to ask that. And this is really a challenge. It means that we need to push ourselves, and maybe we need to test out and launch innovations or new ways of working that might not actually immediately respond to the needs of customers, but I think this is what's really expected. Same on the environmental side of things. For example, the current the regulation, be it either at the European or at the global level, is changing fast. And it is really, it is going to have a major impact on the hospitality industry. For example, the EU, as part of the Green Deal, has announced that it wants to curb CO2 emission by 55% by 2030. For example, there is the COP15 in China that will be coming up, trying to with the objective of increasing the level of performance in terms of protecting biodiversity and nature. And all these are sort of very new topics and new areas that the hospitality industry need to actually have solutions to. And so this is a challenge. And this will probably require having to work differently with investors, coming up with new, for example, new funds or new types of partnerships, new types of collaboration to find solutions to that.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea that Accor is leading by example and being proactive rather than reactive, right? I don't think anyone needs a focus group to tell you that the LGBTQ community or the frontline community or the planet needs to be cared for. And I love that that's the stance that you guys are taking and moving forward. I think just to sort of wrap up here, because we are running short on time, is, if you look maybe a year ahead, 5 years ahead, what impact do you hope to have in hospitality, or where do you hope to see the industry in that time frame?
Several things. And hopefully in 5 years' time, it may sound a bit like surprising, but I think in 5 years' time, hopefully, providing a hotel, providing a bedroom, like just a bed and breakfast, will only be, still a very important part of our activities, but it's going to be probably marginal, because a hotel can be way more than that. It can become, and it should become, for example, a place where people go to work, but also a place where people go to shop in a more responsible way, or a place where people just go and meet their friends. It sounds very obvious, but I think this would be a major change in the role that the hotel has in the community of actually bringing way more than it takes out. So that would be one of the changes that I would expect in 5 years' time. Another one also as well is new types of collaboration. I think over the past century, when I say we, I mean the private sector and more even, the public sector and NGOs haven't been very good at collaborating. But the challenges that we face, the magnitude of the changes that are going to happen require us to work in a different way and to actually work way more closely together to find solutions to some of the problems that seem completely intractable. For example, you could think of the issue of minimum wage. Why don't we work with all our competitors to actually find a way of increasing the minimum wage without creating discrepancies in terms of competition? Why don't we work also with NGOs who can actually spend more time with us, helping us find new ways of tackling poverty, for example, in the communities where the hotel is? So more collaboration and more and closer to the local community, to the neighborhood. I think this is what I would expect to see. And obviously, if we have these two critical pieces of different ways of working, I think we will also hopefully end up with an impact on the environment that is tremendously lower. Because if we don't do that, clients, customers, but also most importantly, investors will actually go and work with other companies.
Well, Brune, thank you again so much for joining us for this conversation. It's left me feeling very optimistic. And again, we welcome you with open arms to the travel and hospitality industry, and can't wait to see what impact you have.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks.